The investigation continues into the deadly police ambush in Dallas. An ethical debate has sparked over the use of a killer robot to take out the suspect. The Dallas police chief says they used a robot that's usually deployed to deactivate bombs to deliver an explosive that killed Micah Johnson. It's believed to be the first time ever in U.S. law enforcement that a robot was used to kill a suspect. The chief said other options would have exposed officers to great danger after negotiations broke down during the standoff. The use of the killer robot has opened a lot of questions about how to deal with these kinds of situations. So what do you think of the unprecedented tactic? Was it an ethical move? That's our topic this half hour. We want to hear from you on our Fox 26 Facebook page. You can also send a tweet. Just use the hashtag Fox26for life. Joining us live in the newsroom is our panel led by our senior legal analyst, Chris Tritico. We have former Harris County Democratic Party Chair Jerry Bernberg and Republican strategist and public policy analyst Jackie Bally. We'll turn it over to you all. What do you think?
I think from a legal standpoint that on this issue, there's no law that says that they couldn't have used and employed this robot in this circumstance. What we're going to see now and moving forward, now that this has happened for the first time in the country, you'll see law enforcement agencies and the United States Department of Justice looking at guidelines for the use of robots in these situations, because we could overuse this, Jerry, as a tactic, and I think that's the major concern. In this circumstance, they negotiated with this guy. He'd already shot 11 or 12 officers. I've already forgotten, unfortunately. 11 officers, and 5 had died. And so at some point, they've got to put an end to this. Negotiations broke down. They sent it in. They ended the problem.
Well, see, I think you asked entirely the wrong question. If the police have a right to use deadly force, it doesn't matter what that deadly force is, whether it's a robot, whether it's a car that they're running over with, whether it's a gun, whether it's a long gun. The question is, at the instant that they used the lethal force, did they have a right to use the lethal force? And what has been offensive to me at some levels is the people I've heard say, oh, this guy killed police officers, therefore he had no more due process rights or any of those sorts of things. That's incorrect. The sole question, and I don't know the answer to, because we haven't had the full investigation yet, is at the moment that the deadly force was used, were the officers justified in believing there was an imminent threat to life of other individuals? If they did, whatever form of lethal force they used would have been justified. It's a little bit troubling that they had him holed up. They had him someplace where he was from which he could not escape. And like we saw what happened here in Houston, they could have waited him out. But if they had, on the other hand, he had body armor, and maybe they were justified. Probably they were justified in believing that would have been too dangerous.
Right.
That's the question. Was deadly force justified?
So what about that? I mean, the chief of police said, "I'm done. We've done all we can do. Negotiations broke down. Send the robot in and blow him up."
Yeah, whenever you have someone in the 12, you have someone attacking a large crowd, or you have someone posing danger to a large number of people, even if it's police officers, protesters. Two of the 12 actually were wounded protesters.
Okay.
So he killed officers, wounded other officers, and wounded protesters. Whenever you have a large number like that, I'm with the police chief. It's done, because at that point, you're dealing with someone whose makeup was to go in there. And he said whenever he was talking to the police officers, he had plotted this. This is something that he wanted to do. Sure. He wanted to take out lives. I know some people are saying police lives mean more than other lives. I don't care if it was just the civilians that he killed. It's a life. And once you do that to a large number of people, I think you need to employ methods like that.
All right, let me go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
Okay, let's check in on our Fox 26 Facebook page. A lot of people weighing in on this. We'll go first to a comment from Sean. He says it wasn't ethical to open fire on a protest either. So how are you going to open a debate on the correct ways to kill people? Frank says, I'm all for killing killers, but seriously, no one else finds this to be a troubling precedent. He says if they were negotiating, then he was no longer an active threat. I'm sure that the police there would probably disagree that he was no longer an active threat. And then Christopher at the bottom there says the robot was a great idea. The suspect was not going to stop until he was killed, and they did a great job making sure that SWAT didn't have to enter and possibly putting more officers in danger.
And those last two tweets really highlight what you were saying, Jerry. And at what point do we say that the issue is we can continue negotiating, we can wait this guy out, or it's still a danger? And that's the problem.
The problem is we don't have the facts.
Right.
The police officers did. The after-action review will make that determination. But it's the wrong question to say, oh, he killed some people, he was dangerous in the past, therefore we should kill him now. That is not legitimate reason to use deadly and lethal force. It may very well be, probably was, justified for the police officers to believe he was a current imminent threat.
Based on what had been happening.
Well, in part, no. If he'd, for example, been totally disarmed by them or whatever. But I'm not saying they made the wrong decision.
I understand.
I'm saying we shouldn't be judging that. That should be the people who are
questions like this will come up more and more, because as you see more killings and you see more riots because of the killings, you're going to have technology that's going to be used by the police officers to justify their actions.
Right.
We talked about camcorders for many sessions, and about police officers beefing up their budgets to provide for those camcorders. I think especially whenever you see things like this, I think it's a good justification now for police officers to arm themselves with those type of equipment to help them whenever they're trying to go into the community, and help them when they're dealing with horrible people like this man.
So let's talk about policy moving forward, because you're going to see now, I think, this robotics employed more often. You know, a lot of this guy, I'm not sure about mental illness, but a lot of this is mentally ill people. And if you're just going to start sending robots in to blow people up, I think that takes you got to be careful about when you're going to use these things.
I think you need to have a procedure that it's going to be a serious situation, and serious, of course, you're going to have to define what that is.
Right.
When you have multiple people, someone like this man who had the intention of killing as many people as he could, versus a guy who you see in robbing a house and you don't even know if he has a gun on him.
Right.
I think there's going to be a big difference.
No more so whether it's a robot, whether it's a gun, whether it's a car that you try to run him over with. The means you use to use the deadly force don't matter. What matters is whether the use of deadly force was necessary to prevent imminent harm at the time that it was used.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Join us on Facebook. Ask your questions. We're going to go on a behind the scenes, and we'll be back in 15 minutes with another really good topic.
Okay, we will tune into Facebook to see you guys live right now. Thank you.